Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 158, How to Make New Habits Stick.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I think that this is really important because actually one of the ways to make habits stick is to start them at a time of renewal or entering a new phase in your life. It's called the clean slate principle. And essentially what that means is that you're using, like most people use New Year's for this, right? As their clean slate or a new job. But for a lot of people, and I'm one of those people, and I know for a lot of parents, the start of a new school year is like a new, it's a new beginning and it's a new clean slate, right? So this is another good time of year. Like if you have habits that you wanted to put in place and, you couldn't make them stick before, this is a really good time to think about trying to get them to stick. So that's why we're talking about this now. So I think one thing that we both found kind of interesting when you were doing your research is that the 21-day rule or the 30-day rule is not true.
Yeah, there's a person, Gretchen Rubin, who you introduced me to because you like to listen to her podcast. And I was reading an article she put together about this, which is linked in the show notes. You'll be able to see it next Monday, I guess. And one of the things, self-help people are really big, and it's 21 days sometimes, or it's 30 days, or it's 27 days. It's something less than a month for habits to stick. But in her research on habits, it's just not true. It's more like 60 to 90 days.
Right. And I just linked that in the Facebook post for anybody that's watching on Facebook. So they don't have to wait until Monday to watch it. So, yeah. So I think, we've kind of been taught that like, oh, if you can just do it for 21 days, or 30 days, then it's going to click. And I think a lot of us, what happens is because we have that misconception, we think, well, okay, well, I haven't made it stick in 21 days or I haven't made it stick in 30 days. So I'm just going to, it's clearly, this is not a habit I'm going to make. And so people give up way too soon.
Yeah. And I'd say too, it's like, the thing is, and I was trying to look for information to back this up. And to be honest, I didn't find any, but the problem is when you're trying to create a habit is something you end up just doing and you don't think about it. So the thing is, if you're still sitting there going, I need to exercise this morning, I need to brush my teeth, I need to eat better, whatever the habit is you're trying to stick is, while you're still thinking about it, it is not formed into a habit. So if it's 30 days and you realize, wait, I've just done that for the last week, and I didn't even remind myself, that's a new habit. But it's probably going to be more like 60 to 90 days. If it's something you're probably naturally inclined to, or maybe you're more interested in the activity. It's like if I created an activity to play a video game at 3 p.m. every day, that would probably be much easier to stick than me eating green vegetables.
And so one thing that's really important to this, to making this something that you just do, you cannot take breaks. So you can't have, you can't have the day that you don't do it. You can't have cheat days if you're on a diet. You have to keep going, because once you break that momentum, then you're starting all over again, essentially, because you've stopped yourself from making it automatic.
But I think too, when you kind of go into the research, they're going to show that you are going to miss it. You cannot punish yourself. You just might realize it might take a little longer than you thought. Right. So, the thing is, until it's a habit, you're going to miss it. And sometimes even when it's a habit, you might miss it because of life. Like if you create a great morning routine, that's awesome. But if you're trying to create that great morning routine, something happens and you're at the emergency room and you wake up late, or you're in the emergency room during that period of time, there are reasons you're going to miss it anyway. I think the big thing they show is you don't beat yourself up over missing it.
Right. But I think a lot of times, like when people are exercising, they're like, all right, I'm going to exercise, you know, every other day. And oh, it's been 2 weeks. So I deserve a break.
Yeah. Once
Or,
you that language, you're really hurting yourself with.
right. Or, you know, a lot of times with dieting, people are like, I was good all week. I deserve a cheat day.
Mhm.
Which actually they've said in a lot of research I've read on cheat days,
Mhm.
they actually do a lot more harm.
Mhm.
Um, like even just like metabolically.
Well, I think too, I'm not a fan of diets. If you want to change the way you eat, you should change the way you eat. I mean, you have a lot, you can get a lot of issues with the metabolic side of diets anyway, slowing down your metabolism and becoming less productive. And then when you have that cheat day, like Kristen says, it's going to probably hurt you more than it would have normally because your body's more is trying to store more calories than it normally would.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, let's talk about some ways to create habits that,
Mm.
you know, that will stick. And some of these, like, so we've got some research from James Clear. He wrote an article on the 3 R's of habit change,
Hmm.
which we will link in the show notes and in the podcast or the Facebook post.
Hmm.
But essentially, these 3 R's, I think we're going to kind of have to talk these out because I think some of them we don't agree on
Hmm.
whether or not we think they
And the
work.
reason I went this way, just for full disclosure, was I am a person who went through basic training for the Army. It is a behavior modification program. It is probably the premier one in the world, definitely in the United States. And they use behavior modification to get you to just react, which is really what habits are. They're just a response that you end up having. And so I know this stuff works, but there's definitely some arguments over one part that's really valid. But let's get into it. And the first thing I really think is really important here is you have to create a reminder for yourself to do the thing while you're building the habit.
Hmm. Now it's so there's a couple different ways you've got listed here. You can create a trigger or you can pair it with a current habit.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think it's better to pair it with a current habit
Mm-hmm.
than to create a trigger because a lot of times what we use as the trigger is an alarm. And I
It
think,
depends on how you do it. Yes.
right. So like I'm a big believer in just because like we went through this phase where we were setting alarms for everything. Okay. And you do this when you're the parent of a newborn because you forget everything. And the thing that I found though is that alarm was kind of a crutch. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't need to remember I don't need to remember to do this
Yeah.
because the alarm's going to go off and tell me to do it.
I would agree with you. Triggers like that become counterproductive. It's like my phone can get 900 notifications in 30 seconds, which it sometimes does, and I can ignore 900 notifications in 30 seconds. I don't think notifications like that work well once you build up like a tolerance to them. But and this is like kind of Brendan Burchard stuff, where it's like, if it depends on what you're trying to build. So like I want to smile more and be happy more. Part of being happy more is smiling more, at least culturally. So the trigger of I walk through the doorway, I smile. Every time I walk through the doorway, those are the kinds of triggers that once they built in, that you end up doing. When you come home, you take the moment to transition before you walk inside. So you've left the workday behind you and you are now stepping into family time. Those are, I think, triggers that will be a lot more successful. Another alarm, another notification won't do it, too, because a lot of times people will stack not one but 300 new habits that they're trying to achieve anyway. And I think that's a huge mistake. If you start stacking in too many habits at once, you fail on one, you give up on all of them, because you feel like, oh, I'm just not good at this habit stuff. The thing is, I think there's some research backing up too, that I've heard, but I don't have in here, that, really focus on acquiring one new good habit at a time. You'll be more successful at learning a new habit than 13 or the 40 that you might need. And there are times that you might need to try for more than one, but you'll be more successful at acquiring them if you do them one at a time.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think sometimes we try to change our entire lives. And I know when I was working with Emily Olson a couple years ago, that was one thing. She's like, let's pick one thing to change. So if you're going to eat more green vegetables, let's do that. And let's create a habit with that. Then say, I'm going to eat more vegetables and eat more lean meat and try to change like 14,000 things. And I think a lot of times that's why like dieting doesn't work, because we are trying to change everything about our diet at one time versus saying, okay, I'm not going to eat potato chips every day anymore. And that's one thing that you're going to change that may have a dramatic impact. Or I'm not going to drink soda every day. You know, that's something that could have a dramatic impact versus saying, okay, I'm going to completely alter the way that I eat. Right. And so, you know, picking one thing to change at a time is going to be much more successful for you.
Like I know, for example, one of the things, you know, where I'm not a great example of a healthy diet. But I created a new habit, which was the one plate of food. You know, essentially broken up, half of it is vegetable, you know, then carbs and protein make up the other half. And so, but it's one plate. I've been really good at doing that. And it's helped change the way I eat, which has helped my weight, but that wasn't the goal, even though I knew that could be a side effect.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a really easy strategy. And it wasn't necessarily that you're changing what's on the plate, because we were eating a lot of salad and stuff like that, which is typically, you know, half the plate. But it's more we're eating less because it was a bowl of salad plus a full plate of food, you know, and now it's like, okay, we're fitting everything onto one plate. So you're naturally eating less.
Yes.
Right. So I think that was an easy change. And it was one change. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to dramatically change what we eat.
And I'm going to start trying to put Brussels sprouts into Jeffrey's mouth, which would be a habit that would not stick.
Yeah. No, I know that wouldn't stick. Okay. So I think that's, you know, figuring out kind of what your reminder is going to be, right? But not make that reminder a crutch. Okay. And that's why I really like pairing it with a current habit. So
yeah, when you told me about this, that is a brilliant idea because, you know, and I'm going to let you go ahead and because I was about to steal it from you there accidentally, but
I mean,
this is a great idea.
But if you just think about your day, right? There are things that you do every single day, no matter what, right? And so in our house, that is drinking coffee. Okay. Like basically, okay, so wake up, feed baby, make coffee. And if we're both awake at the same time, one of us will feed the baby, the other one will make the coffee. But that is like a thing that we do. And so if you are trying to get in the habit, like, so when I had to start taking medication every morning, I would pour my coffee and then I'd go take my medication. And then I would go back and have my coffee. And so I made that was the trigger that like, okay, I made my coffee. Now I'm going to go take my medicine. And so that really worked for me to remember to take that every single day. And I have not missed a dose since I started taking it. And that was 2 months ago, maybe almost 2 months ago. So that's the kind of thing where, you know, and we all have like, I have to shower every single day. Like even when Eric was really little, I know a lot of moms don't get to do that every day. That was like one of my non-negotiable things is I shower every single day. And so that's something that I could create, you know, a pairing with, right? And so you just have to say like, okay, what routines do I already have in place? Right? And then how can I pair other things with that?
Yeah. You know, it's like saying, you know, I'm going to exercise. Once I'm done exercising, I will do coffee is a great pairing. Now, you're not saying if you skip exercising, you're not going to drink coffee that day. It's not a threat of losing something, but it's just reminds you, oh, because, you know, when we wake up, we think coffee. Oh, wait, I need to go exercise and then I will do coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, creating the pairing, I think is just brilliant. I think it's such a good idea. You have to know what your new routine looks like. So I think sometimes when we're creating new habits, sometimes we're removing things. And so, for example, like one of the big things for me was not checking my email first thing in the morning. And so how do I remove that from my schedule? And the thing is, it's like, you can't just say, okay, I'm not going to check email. You have to say, okay, so what am I going to do instead?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the problem is, if you don't have something, what are you going to do instead? You kind of have this void and you're like, well, I'm going to fill that void by checking my email because I don't have anything else to do. So you have to be like really specific. What is it going to look like? How will you do it? What are you going to do instead if you're removing something? And, I think when we were talking about this, Jeff said, all right, well, if you want to lose weight, you can't just say, I want to lose 50 pounds. You have to have a plan. So how will you do it?
Mm-hmm.
What will it look like? And be really, really specific about it.
Yeah, this is what I'm a stickler on, because one, and Kristin it's like, especially like when I'm doing work stuff, I can get tied in the details, but that's not the kind of person Jeffrey is. Jeffrey does not like details when he doesn't feel like he needs to worry about them. Like that's why I'm not worried about dinner tomorrow night, because I haven't had dinner tonight yet. That's one detail too far. And so but I've also had this area where it's like, I'm going to be healthier starting tomorrow. Because I don't believe in the clean slate concept, because for me, that's like saying, I'm never going to do this, so I'm going to wait to January 1st to not do it then. I believe if you're really ready to change the way you're going to behave, you should start then.
Well, but I think with a clean slate, though,
Mm-hmm.
I think for most of us, you can say, okay, hey, it's a new month. Hey, it's a new week. Hey, school just started. Like, you can find an excuse that you have a clean slate. I don't think you should wait.
Yeah, well, yes. My point being, I think that maybe varies for people. Because for me, that's just, it means I really don't want to do it. That's for me. And there are probably people like me as well too, even though more people might be the other way. And but the thing is, it's like, I'm going to start being healthier now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to set up my computer. I'm going to go back to work, and then I'm going to eat the dinner I was going to eat, because I don't know what to do in its place. If you don't know what you're going to do, even if you're removing something, you're going to find yourself back into the hole of doing what is the current habit, especially if you're trying to replace something.
Right. And I see this a lot in businesses where they say, okay, we're going to make more sales. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? What does it look like? What actions are you going to take? You can't just say, I'm going to increase my sales by 10% every month. There has to be a plan in place. And if you think back in your own life, I would imagine there are probably lots of times where you said, I am going to do something, and you didn't have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's the one thing, is like, you have to know what that new routine is going to look like, whether you're replacing a habit or whether you're trying to eliminate something.
And the other reason I think it's important is sometimes it goes that other direction, where I'm going to lose weight, and I start losing weight. And then, maybe I've lost 10 or 20 pounds, but I have no goal to know when I've accomplished something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to be very careful, and one, the metrics you pick, and two, not to beat yourself up if you fail, but go, okay, it's been 90 days. I've gained 15 pounds. Maybe what I'm doing is not working. Let me try a different approach. Because the problem is, we are creatures of habit, and we really are. So it's hard changing your habits, because you've survived and moved on in your life doing the habits you're doing. And it's maybe not good for you long term, but our brains aren't really great at long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why, it's funny, because I think, and I did a live about this earlier in the week on Facebook, but I think that's why I hear so often from small business owners, I'm like, well, why do you do it that way? They're like, well, we've always done it this way, because that habit has stuck. And I think sometimes in business, we kind of get complacent, right? Where it's like, okay, well, we've always done it this way, and so we're going to continue to do it this way, because those are the habits that we've developed. And I don't think, we necessarily realize the effect that those are having on either our lives or our business.
Yeah. I think we also don't realize how many habits we've successfully formed in our life. If the thing holding you back is I'm not good at doing habits, you're completely wrong. There's all kinds of things that you do out of routine, out of habit already. You are awesome as a human. The difficult thing is creating a new one, especially if you're trying to get rid of one, which is why it's so important to have the thing to fill the gap.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So I think this is something that we're going to kind of differ on a little bit. So James says that you should figure out what your reward is. Okay. And so putting in some sort of positive reinforcement after your habit is formed, and Jeff has a link to 155 ways that you can reward yourself for completing a goal or a task.
And Jamie, I believe, is task-based in the way he says, which is whenever you complete the task, have a small reward on the backside of each task thing. And I was kind of going off instinct when I put that line down about do it at the end, which Kristin was telling me, and this is one of the reasons why Gretchen Rubin is anti-rewards in general. And I know she has exceptions for it, but in general, she's against them for forming habits and for all kinds of things. The reason I would argue is I know that there is also evidence that shows positive reinforcement, not negative, but positive reinforcement is good at changing behavior. And ultimately, changing behavior is changing your habits. But there's also some good arguments on why, and I kind of agree with him. You want to go over a couple of the reasons why rewards are a problem?
Yeah, sure. So one reason that rewards are a problem is that a lot of times we give ourselves rewards that they're very unhealthy rewards. So, we reward ourselves with food that's bad for us, or something that, I exercised for 2 weeks, so I'm going to take the day off from exercising. Or I'm going to have a piece of chocolate cake, or, something. Most rewards that we tend to think of are not good for us. And I don't know why that is. Like, people don't reward themselves with like a massage. It's very bizarre.
Because who doesn't want the bag of Oreos?
Exactly. So the entire bag of Oreos. So, so there's that. The other thing too is that you kind of trigger something in your mind. Like when you get the reward at the end, you're saying, okay, I'm done. Like, look, I earned the reward. Now I'm done. And now I can go, do whatever it is. It's kind of like, it's not a good way to form a habit that you want to have for a lifetime. Right. Yeah. It's a good way to say, all right, I'm going to do this for 30 days. And then after 30 days, I'm all done. And I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm
going to argue here and say the problem is people aren't good at picking rewards. So I think the caution is that you really need to be focused on how does the reward affect you as a person. And obviously it's obvious where you're trying to lose weight. If you reward yourself with what were you saying earlier today? The Vermonter from Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, the mini Vermonter.
Well, then there's the Vermonter, which is like a 700-foot long sundae that you ingest as a human being because you need 700 feet of ice. It's not really 700 feet, but it's a very large sundae. It's like a double like banana split kind of size.
It comes in a bucket.
Yeah, it's a bucket. You know, and there's a mini one which is a little bit better. But the thing is, you have to pick rewards, and this is where kind of going back to the vision of yourself is how does the reward fit in to the person you want to be?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I like ice cream, and sometimes I treat myself to ice cream, but I don't use ice cream as a reward because the problem is I have a tendency to gain weight. And I would be the size of Jabba the Hutt. So that would be a foolish thing if the dream version of myself is not to be Jabba the Hutt, which it's not, then it doesn't make sense for me to put unhealthy food in. And I treat myself more than enough to unhealthy food that I really don't need it as a bonus. But hey, reading a book when I'm not planning to, that's a good treat.
Yeah.
And probably the better approach is probably to do more of the task-based reinforcement. Must be positive. Negative reinforcement will teach you just the opposite of what you want to learn, though. So really try and stay away from the negative reinforcement.
Yeah, no, and I'm a really, and I've kind of come upon this as I've gotten older. I am a really big fan of treating yourself. The difference between a reward and a treat is something that you do whether or not you've accomplished something, right? It's something that you just kind of do sporadically. So like getting a massage can be a treat, getting a pedicure can be a treat. You're not doing it because of something you accomplished, right? You're doing it because you're an awesome person and you deserve to do it. And so I think especially women are really bad at treating themselves. And again, like, a treat is something small, right? So I'll give you an example. So I was out the other day, and my friend Scott Kuzo from Spry Mind, he had posted something a couple weeks ago about matcha, which is like ground up green tea, and all the health benefits of that. And I'm like, I want to try that. So I was at the mall, and they have a David's tea there. And I'm like, well, let me try it. So I tried it. I really liked it. They showed me how to make it. And I spent $40 buying this kit to make yourself your own matcha. Right. And so for us, like $40 is not going to break our budget, so it's something that it's relatively small. It's something I get great joy out of. Like, it's very therapeutic making my matcha. So I'm getting added benefit every time I use it. And I'm using it almost every day. So, that's something that is a treat, right? Like make that splurge of spending the $40 on that. Spending like $400 up on a pair of shoes, or going out and buying $1,000 worth of clothes, that's not a treat. A treat should be something small that's not going to bust your budget.
And this just reminds me of something very important. A lot of times when we're trying to create habits, we're thinking about how we want to act, and we're not taking into consideration ourselves. So for me, if I like the taste of matcha, which I probably wouldn't because it looks like icky to me, and I'm very visually. It
kind of looks like ground up spinach.
And I'm very visually based in flavor. I taste it before it reaches my mouth. But putting that aside, let's say I love the taste of matcha. My mindset, I hate spending time, and Kristin will validate this, preparing food or drinks. Hate it. So coffee is a little different because you put it in a machine and walk away. Brewing tea on the stove, I don't mind. You turn on the kettle, you walk away. But sitting at the stove or in the kitchen for long periods of time is something I'm not going to do unless I change my mindset and learn to appreciate that. And I think one of the things we forget about sometimes when we make habits is we don't take our own mindset into consideration and go, you know what? I need to change the way I think here if I ever want to change these things about me. If I want to acquire these habits, I need to not hate the idea of being behind a stove. Spending 5 minutes stirring would drive me crazy, even if I liked the drink.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really critical, because I think a lot of times we say, all right, I need to lose weight because somebody told me I need to lose weight, or I need to grow my business because my coach told me I need to grow my business, but I don't want to. And the problem is that it's really hard to form any sort of habit or change in your life if you don't want to do it. External reasoning is not a good reason. Right? You have to convince yourself that it's something that you want to do. And I think that ultimately is the reason that most people don't make change.
Yeah. They're doing something they think they should do, not what they want to do. And the person might be right. You might need to grow your business, but if you don't want to, no matter how many times you try, you're going to probably keep failing because you're not going to put the effort you need to into it, really. You might go through motions, so you don't get in trouble with your coach, or your doctor goes, oh, you tried this. Oh, you tried this. Well, let's try this next time. And you go try and fail at that too, just because you're doing what you're told. The thing is, mindset a lot of times is so important when it comes to habits, but it's another reason why it's important to know what you need to do. Because if you don't really like doing the activities, let's say I say, like, next, I'm going to go do free weights. Well, I hate free weights. I don't have a partner to spot me. I wouldn't feel safe doing them, without someone to spot me. That would be a foolish way. Machines, okay, that might make more sense if I don't have someone to spot me. Or coming up with a different plan for exercise, if I, can't afford the machines and I don't want to use free weights because I have no one to spot me. So I think it kind of drives back to number 2, is you really need to know what you want to do. And if you're willing to do those things, and not even about the habit, but just, in the greater sense of doing those things. Like, I'm not sitting there stirring something for 5 minutes, unless it's maybe for Kristin when she's sick.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, to tie this back to business, the successful business owners that I know love what they do. Absolutely love could not imagine not doing what they do. And I think that there are so many business owners that fall into a business or, somehow end up in business, right? Whether it's because they lost a job, somebody around them lost a job, they fell into it and they never learned to love what they do. And here's the thing. It's like, you don't have to love every single aspect of what you do, right?
You probably won't.
There are parts of my business I don't like, but like when I am coaching a client and we're talking strategy for their business, I love doing that. It's funny because I will get off a call and Jeff's like, you're glowing. Like you look so happy getting off that call. Because it fires me up. It's something I'm super passionate about. Like I can track like what people are doing and how their business is performing. It uses the creative side of my brain, right? Because a lot of times we're coming up with strategy. It is awesome. It is so much fun. And so like, that's the part of my business that like, I try to spend more time in, because I love that piece. It's awesome. That gets me through the pieces I don't like to do. Is knowing that because I do the little pieces I don't like to do, that means I get to do the parts I do like to do. And so with any habit or anything you're trying to change in your life, mindset is so critically important. It really is. You've got to learn, if you want to lose weight and eat better, you have to learn to love, what you're doing. Right. So get excited about the different types of food. If you're a foodie, try new things, try new ways to make things. This is why Jeff is like, I'm not like, no. Right. Because Jeff likes to eat the same things all the time. I get really excited about eating new things. So, like the one thing I really struggle with, I struggle with exercise because I have yet to find something that I really like to do. And so it's something I constantly struggle with. Now, I think it's become a little bit easier for me because like having a baby, you're like, well, I want to be around as long as possible. Well, that, and yes, you're forced to move. But it's like, I want to be around as long as possible for him. And so it makes it a little bit easier to make those changes because like selfishly, you're like, I want to be there. Right. And so that does make it, I think, a little bit easier. But you've got to find a reason. Like, people talk about finding your why. What is your why for wanting to do this? Are you doing it because everybody tells you you're supposed to, or is it because you really want to do it? So important. So I think with that, I think that's a really good place to end, right? Find your why for why you want to make these changes and really hold on to that. Okay. So if you have anything that you are trying to change in your life, any, new habits that you're trying to make, this is a great time to do it. It's fall is coming, right? It's the changing of the seasons. And so figure out, the new habits you want to make. Why do you want to make them? You can check out the show notes for all of our tips. The show notes will be out on Monday. And it's really important to make sure that you take some time to treat yourself. because being a small business owner is really hard. And if you don't take the time to treat yourself, you're going to be a miserable human being. I need to be quite honest. And so do something nice for yourself today. Even if it's just like, I'm going to take 30 minutes and I'm going to read, because that'll make a big difference in your mindset and what you can do for your clients, and just how you will awesomely, walk through your day. So thank you so much. And we will see you next week.